Good evening, chosen ones! Welcome to Virtual Beelzebub TV. I am your host, Beelzebub, and welcome back to the pit. So today, I thought we would have some fun with another improv writing session, or I guess improvised storytelling rather, because I'm not writing any of this down because I am lazy. Now, I don't know how. I think this story is pretty popular, and I wanted to take the same writing prompt as someone else did and come up with a completely different story. So, anyone who's like an extreme fan of like fantasy writing, you've heard of Jim Butcher, you've heard of all these famous names. You may have heard the story of how the book Furies of Calderon came to be. According to the story, um, the author was having an argument with one of his writer friends, and his friend was saying, some concepts just can't work. And he was like, and Jim Butcher was like, what do you mean? Give me an example. And he's like, the Roman Legion and Pokemon. You can't combine those things and make a functional story out of it. And he's like, no, it has nothing to do with the concept. It's all about like storytelling ability. And to prove this point, he created a story about which basically a society based on ancient Rome uh, worked alongside these Furies, which are just glorified Pokemon. And I believe this was on like the New York Times bestsellers list, if I'm not mistaken. Or, yeah, USA Today best-selling author. Oh yeah, there it is. New York Times best-selling author. Yeah. So, 100%. So, I was like, okay, let me take the exact same writing prompt and see what I come up with. Roman Legion, these guys, and Pokemon. So first things that come to mind, what Pokemon are war Pokemon? And obviously, the answer that should come to your mind immediately is Raichu, because of Lieutenant Surge. Anyone who's a fan of the games knows his story. He and Raichu fought in the war, this mysterious war that happened years and years ago in the Pokemon games universe that's never elaborated on and really should be. So, look at this dude. This dude looks like a badass. There we go. Yeah. Badass. There we go. Okay. So we've got the Roman legions over here, and we've got the Pokemon over here. Let's make a story. So, let's see. So obviously we need Roman legionnaires to be fighting alongside Pokemon. So what will they be fighting against? Wild Pokemon? Barbarians? I didn't think this far ahead. Okay, so what would Roman legionnaires need Pokemon to fight? Let's go with a fantasy creature. Okay, so earlier today I heard about I've heard in passing this game called Warhammer 40k, and one of the things I love, this anecdote that I picked up today, is that the Orks in Warhammer 40k, their magic works because they believe in it and no other reason. I'll pull it up. Warhammer K Orks. Okay, so they generate a psychic field that allows them to accomplish feats of technology that are otherwise impossible. So it's directly in proportion to the number of orcs in one space. The more orcs that gather, the more orcs that are drawn to them. And there's sort of like, they're not individually intelligent, they just sort of like have this hive mind intelligence where the extremely weak psychic power of one can be, collaborated with a bunch of other orcs. So orcs lack individual psychic power, being denied abilities, blah, 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 but they have collaborative, collective psychic ability, meaning that they believe something is true, it will actually become so. So, for example, orcs will paint their rockets yellow to create bigger explosions simply because that's what they believe. Or I think another example I read is like they'll paint their vehicles red because they think the red makes it go faster. And that's why this ramshackle technology that shouldn't work will completely not function with used by other races because it doesn't actually work. Like, they'll just paint a rock yellow and chuck it, and guess what? It's a grenade now. Why is it a grenade? Because it's yellow, and they believe hard enough. So, let's go with the Orks from Warhammer 40k against the Roman Legion and Pokemon. So, let's see here. Find a good image. Actually, fuck it. Let's just leave the entire image. Let's see. Move this behind me, first of all. And then we'll scooch these boys over here. And we'll... Whoops, that's me. See, this is how you know I don't actually know what I'm doing and it's all improv. I have none of this shit prepared. We're gonna have to squish it down. Make it small. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, these are my writing prompts. So, man, maybe I should have prepared something in advance because I am stuck. Okay. I don't actually know anything about Warhammer 40k Orks. I just heard this tidbit randomly while scrolling online, and I was like, that's cool. So these concepts... okay. So let's start with the familiar. So Lieutenant Surge is obviously going to be a general, or a lieutenant. It's Lieutenant Surge. Why would he be a general? Lieutenant Surge is a lieutenant in the Roman Legion. So he's got, like, you know, spears and short swords and tower shields and all that shit. So he's all kitted out, and beside him is a Raichu. Man, what other Pokemon should be on the battlefield? Champ? Hitmonchan? I feel like it would be a lot of fighting types, you know? They're very, you know, easily warriorified. They're often very humanoid. Let's pick one. You know what? Let's say that Lieutenant Surge is kind of like a hipster, and everyone else is out there using. I wonder if there's any art of Machoke in armor. Well, probably no one gave him armor because he wouldn't fit in human armor, but maybe a sword. Champ with a sword. I mean, that's got to be a thing. Someone had to have thought that'd be cool. Really? Really? No one. No one's made art of Machamp holding 4 swords. I call bullshit. If I scroll long enough, it'll happen. But how long do I want to scroll for? Screw it. Use your friggin' imagination. This is a story, goddammit. Okay. So, man, I am running out of space behind me. This is less than ideal. I really should have planned ahead. This improv shit. Okay. So we've got Roman Legionnaires, and they're all partnered with Machamps, with each of them holding like 4 swords, like 4 Roman gladiuses. And they don't have armor because there's no armor big enough, you know? And then they're all getting into formation. Machamps at the ready, Roman Legionnaires at the ready. There's far more Roman Legionnaires than there are Machamps, because I imagine there's not that many of them. Even if you start a breeding program, they eat a lot of food, take up a lot of space. Let's say that they replaced cavalry. So there's going to be Legionnaire units, which are en masse, lots of people in armor, doable. And then Machamps will be like the cavalry. And let's say that the general has died and left Lieutenant Surge in charge. And he is a hipster, and instead of having a Machamp to raise, he got a Raichu. And they're all getting into formation in the battlefield. You've got the Legionnaires in the back. You've got the Machamp cavalry ready to deploy when it's most tactically advantageous. And Lieutenant Surge, an absolute Chad, him and his Raichu, right up there in the front. He's kitted out with a sword, spear, and shield and armor, and he is ready to go. But what are they fighting, you ask? There's no one on the other side. It's an empty battlefield. And then they wait, and they are quiet. And then you hear this thundering in the distance, this low rumbling sound. And the audience, has no idea what this low rumbling sound is. And they just see the ground shake. Everyone gets a little bit more tense. And all of a sudden, over a hill, into the field of view comes this squadron of orcs with technology that should not work. These are Roman legionnaires. They don't know how technology works. Well, guess what? Neither do the orcs. But through the power of belief and psychic energy, they can compel these great machines to function. So they have a serious technological advantage. So they've got tanks, and these tanks have guns and claws and chainsaws and rocket launchers and all sorts of shit. You see Lieutenant Surge up there in the front. You see Raichu, Lieutenant Surge. There's a spike at the bottom of his tower shield. He plants his shield down in the ground, hides behind it. Raichu gets behind him, and he holds his hand out to the Legionnaires. Hold! 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 The guns start erupting all around them. Missiles start flying in. Choom, choom, choom! And they start pelting the ground around them. Orcs, not known for their accuracy, have basically stormtrooper accuracy, so bullets are whizzing by, missiles are just hitting all around them and missing their targets. He's like, don't worry, their accuracy is shit. They're not lethal until they're within like 30 yards. And so they wait. Explosions, gunfire, bullets, brrr, and the Roman Legion holds strong with Lieutenant Surge in the lead. And they wait, and they wait. And then these tanks, these orc-piloted tanks, start rolling over the horizon. And he goes, throw your spears! And just hundreds of spears start becoming airborne. These pylum spears just whoosh, 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 whoosh. And there are so many spears in the air that they actually darken the sky. And the orcs, because they're dipshits, aren't actually inside the tanks. As you can see in this image, they're all just sitting on tops of the tanks manning guns with like maybe one driver inside. So they're all out with this patchwork armor that completely leaves their arms exposed, their faces exposed, often sometimes their chests exposed. It's just random crap they've strapped to their bodies haphazardly. They're not particularly intelligent. So when the spears come down, some of them miss and hit tanks and bounce off. Some of them hit actual armor and bounce off. But a substantial portion of them find purchase in the green flesh of the orcs. You see orcs in the front line just start taking damage and fall off. The drivers inside, realizing that their gunners are dead, they start to, you would think that they would retreat because they have no gunners, but no, they charge forward. You can see there's this mechanical piece that comes forward and starts spinning. It's like the combine of a tractor ready to till those fields, except it's not coming to till fields, it's coming to shred man-flesh. And at this point, the orcs are getting to a range where they can actually land hits. They're like 90 feet away, 80 feet away, 70 feet away. Machine gun fire and missiles start getting into a lethal range. Kadoosh, kadoosh, kadoosh. Rocket-propelled grenades start flying into the Roman legions. And they don't need to be accurate because these legionnaires are all tightly packed together in Roman formations. So when one of these rocket-propelled grenades lands in the center, boom! A 5x5 grid of men just goes flying into the air. Ah! Body parts torn apart, blood showering everywhere. Lieutenant Surge says, charge! They all get their short spears out, shields at the ready, and they're holding their shields at like a 45-degree angle. So when these large bullets, which are propelled by nothing but psychic energy and a belief that they will go forward if they point, aren't moving at supersonic speeds. They're moving just under. So you've got these large, comparatively slow bullets hitting these shields, which are at this 45-degree angle. They hit, dent, and then deflect forward. So as they move forward in formation, the front line is taking hit after hit after hit. Each of these impacts rattling their arms, they can feel the tendonitis forming in their shoulders and elbows as they take these big impacts. But they hold the line, they hold strong, and continue maneuvering forward. Another rocket-propelled grenade finds one of the squadrons. Another a 5x5 grid of men completely obliterated. And those who do manage to survive the blast, they're crawling for their lives. Machine gun fire from the Orks shreds them to pieces. Massive, like 80 caliber rounds just punch into them. Boom, 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 splat, 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 splat. But there's still enough soldiers to press ahead. And as they all charge forward, and you've got these big whirring combines, they're all running past Lieutenant Surge as the Orks are getting close to him, and they jam their shields into the combines. The spiraling mechanism sucks up the shields, and then it gets stuck, and it jams. With the tanks jammed, they are free to leap onto the tanks with their short spears and just start stabbing. The Orks they draw their swords, these big, meaty, machete-like cleavers. They've got machetes, they've got meat cleavers, they've got very janky-ass looking medieval long swords, and their swords are clashing. And while the Orks are doing these big, wild, heavy swings, the Roman legionnaires are well-trained units, and they're able to outmaneuver, parrying blocks and stabbing Orks. And you can see that as the first tank gets stuck, the Roman Legion, a 5x5 grid of men, just turns into a mob of ants on top of this mound of metal and orc, and are able to completely destroy it. And just as they claim victory on this one tank, a rocket-propelled grenade flashes through the air, lands on the tank that they just conquered, explodes. Doosh! Romans, Orks, and metal just start spewing all over the battlefield in this ball of fire. And it is at this moment that Lieutenant Surge pulls his extremely battered shield out of the ground, points his spear at the enemy, and says, "Raichu, use thunder!" The clouds overhead turn dark, storm clouds gather. Skadoosh! This massive bolt of lightning falls from the sky and lands on a tank. As electricity surges through the metal and into the ground, it electrocutes all of the Orks inside. And then the fuel that powers these engines catches fire. Boom! One thunderbolt, an entire tank gone. But there are many, many more to go. So you've got the Legionnaires throwing their shields as a sacrifice to stop the combines, so they can mount and stab. It is absolute chaos. Gunfire, stabs, whirring combines. You can see that one of the Roman legionnaires that use their shields to clog the combine get flanked from behind, and just as they're about to climb on, that whirling, spiky death comes up from behind them, and they get slammed between the stopped combine and the active combine, and they just get pinned between the two and absolutely shredded. You can see hands reaching up towards the heavens, only to slowly sink into the whirling maw of the tank's teeth. And then, goosh, another lightning bolt flashes in the sky, hits a tank, and explodes it. There's absolute pandemonium. There's screaming, there's blood, there's dying. And you can see this is where Lieutenant Surge finally makes his move. He starts running into the battlefield. Explosions, bullets, and spears flying all around him. And he gets onto one of the tanks that his Roman Legionnaire buddies have defeated, but has not yet been hit by a rocket-propelled grenade. He jumps on there, hops onto the one of the turrets on the top with this full-auto machine gun, and he pivots it around, aims it at an enemy tank, and he tries to fire. It doesn't work. He doesn't believe it will work because he doesn't understand that it will work. It's powered by the psychic energy. The mystical belief that these Orks have in their technology is the only thing powering it. So as he sits there trying to fire, his complete lack of shred of psychic energy completely unable to fire this gun. He looks defeated. He sees gunfire coming his way. He jumps into the air, triple backflips, lands behind the tank as 80 caliber fire just pelts the tank that he's hiding behind. And he's like, shit, I need help. I don't have the energy to power this weapon. I'm not an orc. But then he goes, aha, I just need psychic energy. And you see him pull out a Pokeball. And it opens. And you see, it's a Kadabra, his spoon at the ready. And he goes, Kadabra, I choose you. Use psychic on the guns. And you see Kadabra using his psychic energy, the very same energy field that the orcs are using to power their weapons. He waves his spoon from behind the cover of the tank, wheels that bad boy around, animates all of the rocket launchers and guns at once, and except he is a hyper-intelligent Pokemon with an IQ of like 350, so while the orcs are just shooting randomly and chaotically with no aim whatsoever, he's able to zero in with laser-like precision, guided by his psychic energy. A dead orc hit. Another orc falls off the tank. Short, controlled burst. And you see Kadabra with one spoon just controlling this tank, and then he sends it. You see Lieutenant Surge grab the shields that are clogging the Combine, and with the combined strength of him and Raichu and Kadabra's psychic energy, they rip out all of these jammed in shields, throw them aside. The Combine is no longer stuck, and Kadabra gets to work getting this thing moving. He spins it around 180 degrees and sends it back at the enemy. And now that he's in close range, he deploys the rocket-propelled grenades. Grenades hit enemy tanks. Boosh! 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 With Kadabra controlling an enemy tank, and he absolutely wipes out enemy tanks. And then Surge gets an idea. He's like, wait, Kadabra, just kill the orcs, don't destroy the tanks. And Kadabra does as his trainer commands, and starts using the 80 cal machine guns to down the drivers on the enemy tanks. And with the gunners down, the Combine still spinning, Kadabra looks at him, psychically communicates, should I turn off the Combine? And he's like, no, leave it running. And he runs up to this tank, which is still moving, still got that Combine spinning. It's getting closer and closer, but he doesn't care. He's actually running towards it. He leaps into the air, does a triple front flip, lands on top of the tank, opens the hatch, and he sees that there is in fact an orc driving the thing on the inside. He pulls out his Gladius, flips into a reverse grip, and plunges it down at the helpless orc inside, killed like shooting fish in a barrel. Split! Blood goes everywhere. And he grabs this 350-pound orc with one hand and just does the world's manliest bicep curl, pulling the orc out of the tank and throwing him aside. And then he hops into the driver's seat, and he sees that there was a second orc inside, the one operating the Combine, and he didn't see him in time because it's dark and cramped in here. The orc lunges forward and skewers him through the back as he's trying to drive this tank. He's been hit. What does he do? He's been impaled. And he's not facing the enemy. What can he do? He can't stab. There's no room to turn around and take this great big hack and swing. And as the blade just sits there in his body, the orc twists it inside of him. It hurts. He's gonna die. He's gonna bleed out. What does he do? He grabs the blade so that it can't get out. Pulls the blade farther into him by pushing it forward. The orc behind him is flung forward, and he snaps his head backwards, headbutting the orc in the nose. Blood spews from the orc's nose as it tumbles backwards, but not terribly far. This is a very cramped and closed tank enclosure. So with the orc disarmed and tumbling backwards, bleeding from the nose, he then pushes the sword out of his body, turns around, maneuvers his gladius within this tight, cramped location, and lunges forward, stabbing the orc. And then he grabs the orc, and he just chucks him out of the exit, and throws the sword out along with him. And he's like, Cadabra, get in here! And then he says, he's like, alright, can you operate a tank from the inside? That way you can make more daring maneuvers while within the protection of this tank. And Cadabra gives him a salute with the spoon. Lieutenant Surge climbs out, and he's like, drive me towards that tank! And you've got the tank powered by Cadabra, able to maneuver multiple objects at once with his incredible intellect and psychic power. And Lieutenant Surge stops. He's like standing on top of the tank, arms crossed, looking like a badass. And as the enemy fires whizzing behind him, he doesn't falter. He just stands there, bleeding and just glaring menacingly. And just as it looks like the two tanks are going to collide, leaps into the air. Gladius cocked back, lands Gladius first in the chest of an enemy orc, and starts sparring with these orcs that start climbing to the top of the tank. He outmaneuvers all of them. Orc blood in his own blood spraying in all directions. He flips open the hatch, boom, plunges his sword downwards, kills the orc inside, pulls him out. This time he knows there's a second orc in time, waits for that second orc to come, stabs him through the brain, pulls him out, and hops inside. Now there are two allied tanks, one psychically controlled and one controlled by Lieutenant Surge. What does Lieutenant Surge do? He just kind of hunkers down. He goes, Raichu, get in here! And Raichu leaps inside. He closes the hatch, and he just sits in there, and he's like, okay, Raichu, I need to think. We have an allied tank piloted by Cadabra, but I can't pilot this thing, because I don't have psychic powers, and neither do you, but we're right in the middle of the battlefield. We have a chance to do some major damage. And Raichu thinks about it, and he thinks about it. Raichu speaks, but you can only say his name. But Lieutenant Surge, having that bond between him and Pokemon, that long-term friendship, he knows exactly what Raichu is suggesting. They're going, as they hash out a plan, they're like, okay, we need to slam a bunch of tanks together so they all get stuck, and then Raichu's gonna blast them all with the thunder, and instead of just one tank exploding, it's gonna start a chain reaction and explode all of the tanks. She's like, okay, how do we do this? I can't maneuver the tank, I don't have psychic energy, but Cadabra does. So he, with this telepathic link with this psychic Pokemon, he's like, okay, Cadabra, time to play chicken. Shoot the enemy tanks to get their attention, and then drive around in a circle. And that's what Cadabra does. He's like, he starts driving around, shooting the orcs that are standing on top of the tanks, and he starts driving this big circle around the tank that Lieutenant Surge is in. Brrrr! Kills a couple orcs, that tank starts following. Brrrr! Kills a couple orcs, that tank starts following. Pretty soon there's like a line of like 6 orc tanks all trying to kill this Cadabra. They're pelting the side of his tank, trying to fire rocket-propelled grenades, each one narrowly missing just outside the lethal radius, unable to damage the tank. And he starts spiraling them closer and closer and closer to Lieutenant Surge, until he parks that bad boy right next to Lieutenant Surge. And when he comes to this sudden halt, the other orcs, all in a line, not being particularly bright, all like end up in like a 6-car pileup. Crash, 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 crash. Or tanks are driving over other tanks, and it's this massive like 8 pileup. You've got 6 enemy orc tanks, the one that Cadabra's in, and the one that Lieutenant Surge and Raichu is in. And Lieutenant Surge goes, oh, I didn't think this through at all. Now we're stuck. We're dogpiled by multiple tanks. And you can see out of the little viewport that their wheels are spinning, but they're stuck. They can't go anywhere, but they can still operate their guns. So all he's done is created this big old death ball where you just got one point on the center of the battlefield where all of the gunfire is coming from in all directions. And as the Roman legions are trying to encircle this big ball of doom, the enemy orcs are still able to effectively defend their position. They're just now stuck at one point in a ball. Honestly, a better strategy than the one they were using before, which was zipping around in zigzags, haphazardly shooting in all directions. This is actually working out more advantageously for the orcs, because now they're in an actual formation. The Roman legions can't get close, because as soon as they do, they get within deadly range of the rocket-propelled grenades and the machine guns. 80 caliber bullets whizzing past their heads. Shit, there's nothing they can do. If they advance, it's suicide. There's nothing they can do. What do they do? Raichu, he looks at Lieutenant Surge. Lieutenant Surge looks at Pikachu, and Raichu says, "Raichu." Lieutenant Surge looks at Raichu, a single tear dropping down his face. He goes, "I couldn't have said it better myself. It's been an honor serving with you, Raichu. Kadabra, use your psychic powers to escape and fly out of the danger zone. We're gonna stay behind." Kadabra's like, "No, you moron, I'm not leaving you behind. You're everything to me. You're my greatest trainer." And he goes, "No, Kadabra, let us do this. Raichu's going to detonate the tank, which is going to cause a chain reaction and cause all of them to blow up." And Kadabra's like, "No, you and Raichu have too much to lose. Let me do it. I can activate all the grenades at once." He's like, "No, Kadabra, don't." Kadabra goes, "I'm sorry, Lieutenant. I can't let you do this. Let me do this." And Kadabra psychically opens up the hatch and telekinetically lifts Lieutenant Surge and Raichu out of the tank and catapults them out of the arena. Lieutenant Surge stretches his arm out. "Kadabra, no! This was my sacrifice! You should have let me sacrifice himself." A tear rolls down Kadabra's face, as he just sort of crosses his legs, crosses his arms, the spoon floating in front of them. This spoon starts to spin rapidly. All the tanks start to grow this bluish, purplish, pinkish color, swirling magical energy, encompassing all of the vehicles. And you hear this whirring sound as all the explosives and all of the liquid fuel cores start to activate all at once. Lieutenant Surge hits the ground and tumbles to the ground, holding onto Raichu to protect Raichu from the many rocks and spiky plants that are on the hill that he rolls down. So as he reaches the end of the hill, Raichu is safe, but he is battered and bruised and bloodied and scraped and cut. Not to mention he has a giant gaping wound in the middle of his torso, so that doesn't help things either, if I'm being completely honest. And he's like, "No, Kadabra, no!" And he starts climbing back up that hill, Raichu running with him. And just as he reaches the top, he looks over the edge, tears streaming down his face. The Roman legionnaires all fleeing for their lives. They see this glowing energy. They know it's not good, so men are running past Lieutenant Surge as he's trying to get closer to his beloved Kadabra. No! Boom! Boom, 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 boom. All the vehicles explode. Boom! There's this massive fireball that turns into this great big mushroom cloud. You can see the shockwave coming towards them, and it blasts past Lieutenant Surge's face, hitting him in the face, blowing his clothes back. He's just holding onto the ground by digging his fingers into the dirt and under the rocks, trying to hold this position. The shockwave passes. Shrapnel starts flying in all directions. He grabs his Raichu and protects Raichu with his body. Sharp pieces of jagged metal and broken tank start impaling him in the shoulders and the head and the arms and the back. This man has lost probably half a gallon of blood at this point. And as the shrapnel stops, the smoke just starts to slow down. The fire subsides until it's just a small flickering flame on top of a giant wreckage pile. And you can't see the body of Kadabra. All that can be seen is a magic spoon spiraling through the air and puncturing into the ground in front of Lieutenant Surge. He reaches out, grabs the spoon, pulls it close. He's like, "It was an honor working with you, Kadabra. You were one of the real ones." And as the all of the orcs have been defeated in this giant fireball. The Roman legion, their numbers reduced to a third of their original size in this bloody conflict. But there are still some remaining Roman legionnaires and Pokemon, whereas there are no orcs. The battle has been won, but at what cost? The medics eventually come to the field. They patch up Lieutenant Surge. There's a long, painful night where he's not sure if he's going to make it through, but through sheer force of will, testicular fortitude, if you will, he manages to pull through to the morning. Raichu, almost completely unharmed, aside from a few scratches. And they look and they're like, Lieutenant Surge, what you did saved the day. Your strategy, your planning, your sheer ballsiness led us to victory. And he goes, no, it wasn't me. It's all thanks to Kadabra. And from that day forward, Lieutenant Surge went on to be a Pokemon gym leader, letting other trainers from across the world challenge him in Pokemon battles, with his faithful Raichu at his side. And from that day, although many asked, he never told anyone what happened that day, for it brought back too many painful memories. And the war was so bloody and so horrible that the adults just refused to talk about it. Their trauma too deep, too painful. So even to this day, as the war has ended, technology has advanced, training Pokemon is no longer a military an exercise, but instead it's just a hobby for kids. There's still that, some of that honor left, and there's still some real heroes left in this world who remember how it used to be, but they refuse to talk about it so that the younger generation doesn't have to live with the horrors of war. Yeah! Oh my god, that turned out so much cooler than I thought it would. Holy shit! Yes! Oh, that was fun! Oh man! How long was I talking for? Oh my god, was I talking for 42 minutes? Oh, I'm gonna have to edit this down. This is too long. Oh, this is too long. Oh my god. Bro, that was epic. The final fight between fucking Orks, Pokemon, and Roman Legionnaires. Fuck yeah. Ah, shit, I forgot to have the Machamps involved. Fuck it, whatever. Doesn't matter. That was still cool. Alright. I'm signing off, man. I will see you guys next time.
Pack up your sins and go to the devil in Hades. You'll meet the finest of gentlemen and the finest of ladies. They'd rather be down below than up above. Hades is full of thousands of Joneses and Browns, Houligans, Cohens, and Brady's. You'll hear a heavenly tune that went to the devil because the jazz band started picking it, put a drink in it, a jazzy kick in it. They've got a couple of old reformers in heaven, making them go to bed at 11.